Greetings, Karen Clay and the Feldenkrais Method. Thanks again for watching. We're continuing with our Start Here series, a beginning series for those of you who have had no experience. And we're going to be working with side bending today, another letter of the movement alphabet, like flexion, like extension, like rotation or rolling. Side bending is in this plane. It's a two-dimensional movement from side to side. And I believe that it is this would be number 7 in the series. I'm going to read a quote from Moshe Feldenkrais. When a screw has to be driven, it's of little importance whether the screwdriver is used skillfully or not. It might even be driven with a knife. So let's say that you were in a pinch and you had to drive the screw in and you couldn't find the screwdriver. Well, it'd be fine to use the knife for that once. Rare and essentially non-repetitive actions can be carried out in this fashion, meaning rarely using a knife to screw in a screw can be okay. If one or only a few screws are to be put in, the knife may not suffer too much, and the screws might be reasonably well driven in. In habitually and constantly recurring actions, it is essential to preserve the tool. You and I are the tools that must be preserved. So we cannot afford bad action. We cannot afford movements that strain our spine, that shear across our joints, that overextend our joints, that overstretch our tissues. So that is another one of the tenets of the Feldenkrais method, that we take care of our instrument. All right, let's all start on the left side just to make life easier for the folks at home. Please come and lie down on your back to start with, please. And just tune in to how you meet the floor. Maybe you put your hands on your hips and just give yourself a sense of your waist, the space between your pelvis on the side and your ribs on the side. Maybe you reach one hand under the small of your back to see how far it reaches, if it reaches all the way across or if it just goes in a little ways. And then please turn on to your left side. You're going to rest with your elbow underneath your head, and your top palm will be resting on the floor in front of you, palm down, elbow up. Your knees are together at about 90 degrees. So please begin by keeping the knees together, but lifting the right ankle away from the left ankle, and then set it back down. So if you could see, it's a very small movement. We're not interested in doing ballistic movement. We're not interested in figuring out how far we can go. We're just interested in what is the first impetus of this movement. So pause for a moment and put your hand on the side of your pelvis, on the big sticky outy bone that when you rub your hand over the side of your rump, it sticks out. Now drill in your imagination all the way across to the other side of the pelvis, to the same bone that's the left side of the leg bone there against the floor. Keep your other right hand on the one on the top and move the foot away from the lower foot again. So the right foot begins to lift towards the ceiling with the knees together. Now, can you feel that bottom side of your leg, the bottom leg, the left leg, and the left side of the pelvis are being driven into the ground by the lifting of the lower leg? The movement is actually moving a little bit towards your head and a little bit towards your foot, as the movement of the knee, because you're keeping your thighs together, drives the pelvis, the top side of the pelvis, up towards the top of the head. So now take your top hand and put it under your waist, just a little bit, just your fingertips under your waist, and you'll really feel how when you lift the knee, your waistline flattens over your hand, and when you lower your knee, your waistline arches up. There's a little tunnel under your waist that gets flattened and lifted up. So you can keep your hand there if you wish. You don't need to leave it there if you don't, but you want to have that sense that you are changing the shape of your waistline and that your movement is climbing up the floor and down the floor, depending on when the foot up, climb up the floor, foot down, climb down the floor. So it's a little bit of a pogo stick movement as your waistline is driven into the floor and away from the floor. Now, just hold your foot in the air for a moment and just sense, so you can really sense that space under there. Great. Let that go. Now, will you please raise your knee to the ceiling, keeping your feet together? Again, we're not looking for how far you go. Notice that in this case, your pelvis is moving in a completely different direction. You're now moving backwards. Put your hand on your top sticky outy bone. That's called the trochanter. It's part of the bend in the leg bone. How it rolls you back and it rolls you forwards. And what does it do to the tunnel under your waist? Does it get a little larger as the knee lifts and a little flatter as the knee drops? Now, what would happen if you lifted your foot once and then your knee once? Can you sense the difference in the activity when you flatten your waist and roll forward, lifting the foot, and arch the waist and lift the knee and roll backwards slightly? So great. Now take your top hand and reach over the top of your head so that your hand is under your left temple. Your right hand is under your left temple. And will you drive upward through the top of your head so that your head can just take off the floor the way an airplane takes off at the beginning of the runway or at the end of the runway. So you're not lifting your head as far as you can go. Please do not lift your head. Let your head glide upward towards the wall above your head and lengthen like a takeoff and set it back down. Add lifting the foot and lifting the head at the same time. You're moving towards your head as you lift and towards your tail as you lower. So the whole lengthening action towards the top of the head makes lifting the head and lifting the foot easy as you flatten the tunnel. Then as you lower your head, roll onto your back and take a rest. So now you may notice a great deal of difference between one side and the other of yourself. Your left side may feel bigger, it may feel flatter, it may feel wider. And if you check your lower back, you may even notice that that side of your lower back has changed. Come back to the same side. You have just a little bit more to do. So what we're going to do now is we've got the flattening the tunnel. Let's lift the tunnel by lengthening the leg down, moving the leg forward and rolling the head back, moving the leg back and rolling the head forward. This should feel really good to be moving the leg and the head in opposition, changing the space under the waist depending on whether your leg is forward or whether your leg is back. Your head is comfortably in the air because now it's being counterbalanced by the weight of your leg. Good. Bring your knees together, roll onto your back and take a rest. Sensing again the two sides. And then when you're ready, roll over and do it lying on the right side, same pattern. So you'll just replay the video again. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Bye-bye.